Robertson Family Racing Pigeons. This is James. Hope everyone is doing well. Thought we would come check in on our One Loft Race bird. It's been in quarantine for a week, just over a week now. Let's take a look at the droppings. Oh, the droppings are all looking good. Look at that, solid droppings all around. That's fantastic. So we're gonna move him in another couple of days and get him paired up. But as promised, we're gonna talk about some of the things to consider when entering a One Loft race. All right, let's get to it. Robertson Family Racing Pigeons, James here. So, as promised, here's the next video about One Loft Races in the United States. So, several of you have asked me for recommendations on One Loft Races. And I want to introduce you to an awesome resource where you can get a lot of really great information that will help you make an informed decision for what race you might want to enter. So this is a website. It's called One Loft Race Stats, OLRstats.com. It is run by Joe Nemelka in Utah, and he just does all this to help the sport out. So he collects all this data, runs the statistics on it, and he's been doing this for a couple of years now. And it's really awesome. It's really illuminating and just a nice way to track One Loft races and other stats. So let's take a look here. So we've got here at the top about OLR stats. OLR stats, there's the 2021 stats we can see. Here, let me move this so you guys can see this better actually. Okay, so you got 2021 stats, and then there's the race stats and breeder stats. Okay, so that's one of the nice things about this is it gives you stats for not only the races, but actually gives you stats for certain One Loft participants. So the breeders who enter the One Loft races. And there are criteria that you have to meet in order to be tracked on this website. And we'll take a look at that in just a minute. Let's take a look at the stats for the races. But here you can look, I guess this shows you how many years he's been doing it. So we've got it for 5 years. Started in 2017, 18, 19, 20, and then 21. Let's look at 21, and then they have a combined yearly stats, which is pretty awesome. So let's look at OLR stats for this most recent year, 2021. We're going to go to the race stats. Okay, and then it's going to bring up some of the categories. So here in this first basically table, this is the 2021 races that are tracked. And it's sorted by the number of entries. In other words, the number of birds entered. So you can see that Hoosier Classic had the greatest number of birds originally entered this year in the United States with 4.3 thousand. The next was the Peach Classic, and then the California Classic, and then you can just see going down. So this gives you an idea of how big the races are. So let's see, once we get down here, we kind of have, we've got like right around the 2,000 mark here with the Peach Classic, California Classic, Flamingo International Challenge, and then you get close to kind of the 1,000 mark, Apple Cup, Southern Belle, Orlando Golden Classic, the Royal Cup, Crooked River Challenge, Texas Dash for Cash. This was the first year for that race. American Grand National, Sooner Challenge, all those are right around that 1,000 mark. Okay, so then as we go down, we see some other kind of popular ones. The Blue Bucket Stampede had 738 this year. Plymouth Peak in Utah had 567. The Tucson Triple Challenge, which was the race that Abdiel and I did, had 435. Gold Country Challenge. Okay, so that's great. These were all the races that were tracked in this year, 2021, this past year. Now let's see. Let's look at this. 29 races are qualified to be tracked this year, flying over 28,000 pigeons. A reminder, we are only tracking those One Loft races that have over 300 birds in them and finished their final race before basically the end of the year. Okay, so those are the criteria. You have to have at least 300 birds. So yeah, there are other One Loft races, but you got to have at least 300 birds to be tracked on this website. So no surprise that the Hoosier is the biggest race here in the United States, one of the biggest in the world. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's one of the statistics. And if we scroll down, we'll see some more. Okay, so here we go. Total prize money. Big surprise here. So this time it's ranked by the total prize money, and Hoosier Classic blows everything else out of the water with $1.5 million in total prize money. So then you have a few that are, several 100,000 here. California Classic, Crooked River Challenge, Peach Classic, Cuevas Classic, the Black Gold Race, it's in the 200s, Apple Cup, the Texas Dash for Cash, 189,000. So you can kind of just get an idea also about the payout for each of the races. That might be a factor for you when making a decision on where you want to enter your birds. How much money are they paying out to the winners? And you'd have to go to each website of each race to see how the payment is allocated. Are they paying birds for average speed? Which races are included in the average speed races? And are they paying it on clocking order or first drop and then clocking order? There are lots of different rules and variables. So you want to check those out by going to each race's webpage and looking at the rules. So you can kind of look at the ratio, and that kind of gives you an idea of the payout per bird. So divide this number by this number, and that might be a factor for you. That'll be indicative of the payout per bird. I'm not very good at math, but I mean, you can just look at this and see which races have a good payout, which ones don't have a good payout. All right, here are some of the more informative stats. I guess these are the stats that I'm interested in. I want to know how good the basically One Loft Race manager is for each of these races, because that's a big factor. If you enter your birds in a race and the race has a history of losing lots of birds year after year, well, that's probably a race you want to avoid. So here are some very informative stats that are relevant to that issue. So here we have number of birds entered in this column, number of birds sent to the first race, the percent of birds sent to the first race, and then the distance of that first race. So I want to enter my birds in a race that's going to do well in this statistic. I want to have my birds be taken care of by someone who's going to get them to the race, keeping them healthy, keeping them in good enough condition, all the factors. We want our birds to get to that first race. I mean, if they don't go to the race, then you just paid for a perch fee for nothing. Ones that did well in 2021, Trapper's Loop Challenge, Texas Dash for Cash, Central Valley One Loft Race, Black Gold Race, the Crooked River Challenge, Orlando Golden Classic, all those are right around 80% of the birds that were originally sent made it to that first race, which is pretty good if you think about it. And there's the distance, and especially with these, that first race, 200 miles on the Crooked River, 80% of the initial birds made it to that 200-mile race. That's awesome. So that's something that I look for and is an important statistic in my mind when selecting a One Loft race. All right, so let's see. How do some of the big names do? The California Classic, 73% made it to the 140-mile first race. Tucson Triple Challenge, nearly 70% made it to the 100-mile race. Let's see, where's the Hoosier? Hoosier, where are you? There you are, 17. Hoosier, 57%. So even though that's the biggest race, only 57% made it to that first 150 miles.
And it gets worse as you go down the list here.
Now, I need to point out right now that this is just this year. This is 2021, and if we look back in the archive years, the past 4 years, then this could be totally switched. I mean, it's understandable that some races have a bad year. And so you want to look for that. You shouldn't just judge it based on what happened this last year, but what happened over the past 5 years. And that'll give you a good idea of, I guess, the consistency. With the Southern Belle, for example, only 21% made it. They had like a really bad smash race or two early on. Actually, it wasn't even a race. It was a toss. An early on toss that was just a smash toss. But if we went back and looked over the past few years and Southern Belle has done really well in this statistic, then we'd say, okay, well, that's a fluke. I'm going to give them another try. All right, so that's one statistic. Percent of birds sent to the first race. That's an important one. This one is, in my mind, the most important. Percent of initial entry sent to the final race. So, look at that. 77% of the initial birds entered in the Black Gold race made it to the final 350-mile race. That right there tells me that that One Loft manager is doing something right. They're doing good things. They're handling those birds well. They're keeping them healthy. They are keeping them in shape. And so, for me, this is the most important stat. Texas Dash for Cash did well. Cuevas Classic, Top Breeder Challenge, Crooked River, California Classic. All these races at the top did pretty well with that. And then, you can just take a look at it going on down, how all the races did. Percent to the final race. The Tucson Triple Challenge, I've already talked about this, but on that 250-mile race, they had a smash race and lost a lot of birds. So when it came to the final, there's only 21% of the initial entry left to compete. But man, some races just really had bad years. The Plymouth Peak Pro Challenge is usually a great race, but this year, I think there are some poor decisions made with going ahead and shipping on inclement weather days. These last two races, Southern Belle and Peach Classic, really had abysmal years. So let's not judge those two races just on this performance. Let's go back through the archive and see how they did year after year. Assuming they had over 300 birds and were tracked on OLRstats.com, but I'm pretty sure they did. All right, so this one is, let's see, OLR percent of final race returns. Okay. The percent of initial entry returning from the final races. So this is the percent going to that final race. This is the percent of the initial entry returning from that final race. So actually, this is probably the most important. 77% on that Black Gold race made it back. Kudos. to the One Loft Race manager there. That's fantastic. Cuevas Classic also did great. Texas Dash for Cash, Crooked River, you know. And you can just go on down the list and look at those stats. But you can see that this website is a tremendous resource when trying to decide on a race to enter, right? That's pretty awesome. Thank you, Joe Nemelka. This is a great service to the racing pigeon sport, collating these data. I'm sure it is a very time-intensive endeavor. All right, yards per minute of average speed winners. So this is interesting as well. We've got the total number of races here. Trapper's Loop Challenge, wow, 7 races. 7 down here on the Plymouth Peak Pro Challenge. But yeah, and then it's the average mileage per race. So it's going to average all the races there. You got that. Looks like most of them are around 250. Total race miles. So the American Average Speed Championship. 1,200 miles there. Plymouth Peak, 1,600. What's this one? 1,400 at the Blue Bucket. Nice. It's a lot of miles on the wing. So then we have the average speed. Let's see. Yards per minute of first average speed bird. So there you go. That may be indicative of the speed of the races in that series that year, whether they're blow-home races or not, or if they're kind of middle-of-the-road races or incredibly tough races. So, pretty informative stats here. So this is the first step I go through when I consider a One Loft race for entry and participation. I go to this website, see how they've all done. So now let's see something here. Let's see how some of those other races did that didn't do well this year. So let's go back down. So yeah, like these where we had the Southern Belle and the Peach Classic, where they only had 8% and 4% that made it to that final race. Let's see how they did like the previous year. Southern Belle and Peach Classic. All right, let's check those out. So we're gonna go to 2020. Boom. Okay, Peach Classic is still down on the lower end, but that's 25%, and then Southern Belle also is 32%. But I mean, look at the difference though. 32%, 25% versus what was it? 8% and 4% or something like that. So yeah, they had a really bad year this year. But you can just kind of compare year to year, and man, what a great resource. Okay, so yeah, there you go. Great resource here, One Loft Race stats. Hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, like the content, please like and subscribe. Always appreciate support. Birds are looking great, and I'll do another video soon with an update on the breeding. But as you can see with this little glimpse, that things are going well.